I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Truckee Meadows Community College Institutional Advisory Council. If you can say that fast twice. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chair Collie-Cutter,
Here.
Vice Chair Esquada,
Here.
Councilmember Bailey,
Here.
Councilmember Bender,
Here.
Councilmember Brown,
Here.
Councilmember Kazmierski,
Here.
Councilmember Knudsen,
Here.
Councilmember McCormick,
Present.
Councilmember Schilling is absent today, Councilmember Thurman,
Here.
and welcome back to Councilmember Woodring.
Present.
Today we also have Mike Holmes filling in for Shore Cardoza,
Here.
David Turner,
Here.
and Dr. Julia Hammett is filling in for Henry Sosnowski.
Here.
Thank you very much, and I believe we have quorum. And the first order of business is public comment. Public comment will be taken during this agenda item. No action may be taken on a matter raised under this item until the matter is included on an agenda as an item on which action may be taken. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Persons making comment will be asked to begin by stating their name for the record and to spell their last name. The council chair may elect to allow additional public comment on a specific agenda item when that agenda item is being considered. Do we have any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. We actually have 3 sets of minutes to be approved today. The first one is the approval of the minutes of the April 26, 2016 joint IAC and TMCC Foundation Board meeting to interview the final candidates for the TMCC presidential position. The members that were present at that were Marissa Brown, Newt Knudsen, Nancy McCormick, Susan Schilling, and John Thurman. So I invite them to let me know if they have any corrections to those minutes, if you happen to have read them.
No corrections.
If there are no corrections, may I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much. The second set is the approval of the minutes of the April 27th, 2016 joint IAC TMCC Foundation Board meeting. And the members present at that were Chris Bender, Marissa Brown, Mike Kazmierski, Newt Knudsen, and Nancy McCormick. Do I have any corrections to those minutes?
No.
Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And finally, we are moving on to the approval of the minutes of the Institutional Advisory Council meeting of May 3rd, 2016. Do I have any corrections? Hearing no corrections, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And at this time, and we have a very tight schedule today. We have a lot of interesting things to go over. And so we're going to just keep moving forward, and hopefully we will finish by 11:30 if I figure this out right. At this time, I would like to turn the meeting over to our new president, Karen Hilgerson.
Hi. So first of all, I want to say how delighted I am to be here with you today. My husband and I are absolutely thrilled to have moved to Reno, and I'm thrilled to be the president of TMCC. I'm so honored, and so I guarantee that I will give 120% and do what I can to strengthen the role of the IAC, especially with respect to the connection to the community and the connection to workforce development. I think that that's really crucial. So I'm glad that you're here, first of all. I think this is a good structure. It's a wonderful idea. It sounds like it's been in place for about a year now, and I look forward to leading year 2 or year 3. Is that right?
Well, we're about a year and a half.
Year and a half in, okay, so it's exciting. I do have a number of updates. I know I've only been here a couple of months, but I think the audience will agree. We've been moving pretty quickly. Thank you, thank you. So, and that's all very, very exciting. And I want to start by saying what a fantastic team I have here at TMCC. And I've got a couple of important updates related to that. As you know, our VPFA, Rachel Solomas, I think
Solomsas.
Yep, has unfortunately left TMCC. We conducted an interim committee search process, and Jim New was appointed in that position for a one-year interim. That left Jim New's position open, the workforce dean, and so we had another interim committee search led by Jim New, and Kyle Dalpy has been appointed the interim dean for a year for workforce. So congratulations, Kyle. We're really excited about that. So I can tell you with those changes, I literally do have a dream team, at least for 1 year. And hopefully the national searches will come out with some great outcomes for the college too, as we move forward with those. So those were two important staffing updates that I wanted to make sure to mention. The next two updates are updates that have been forwarded to me by the area of instruction and academics, and then the area of student services. So a couple of things that I wanted to mention happening in instruction that Vice President Barbara Buchanan, who could not be here today, left. So first of all, after quite a bit of speedy discussion, the college is moving very quickly to centralized tutoring to the library. Right now, our tutoring services are located in sort of a basement, a nice basement, but a basement that's a bit hard to find. We are moving them to the first floor of the library, and it's step one of moving in a multi-phase approach to what's called a learning commons. And a learning commons approach really integrates library services with IT needs, with tutoring, and other types of wraparound student services. We are very excited about this move because what it will mean is that a student is going to see where tutoring is, and tutoring is for everybody in the way that we're defining it. Even A students could use a little tutoring, have someone read a paper, for example, before they submit that paper, right? But ultimately, tutoring can make or break the student who begins here with either a relatively low GPA from their high school education, or it's just been a long time since they've returned to school, so they haven't done intermediate algebra for 10 years, right? So they just need some refreshers. So the fact that tutoring is going to be moved front and center is really important, and we're moving very, very quickly with that. The other thing that is happening in instruction is investigating 3+1 programs, and 3+1 programs are programs where 3 years is occurring at the community college. The university agrees to transfer the entirety of the last of those 3 years. The student takes 1 more year at the university, so then the student earns a bachelor's degree in a 3+1 format. Does that make sense? They're looking at graphic arts, dental hygiene, and education with NSC, Nevada State College. And that's just in the exploratory mode at this point. Let's see, we also have a new AIT director, and that is hired at Edison. Barbara Walden has accepted the position, and we're very excited about that. And I don't know if depending on when your meeting was, but the former assistant IT director of the Edison Center took a job at the governor's office. Were you all aware of that? So, which was a loss, apparently, a huge loss. I haven't met that person yet, but we're very excited about the person who has accepted that position after conducting a national search. And finally, and I think this one is probably the most exciting development in instruction, and that is that the nursing department has recognized the burgeoning need for nurses, so they are adding back a summer cohort that targets people who already have a bachelor's degree but who'd like to enter into nursing. And it's an accelerated nursing program. It does require an investment on the part of the college of 2 tenure track faculty. So we're working on that now. And that cohort would begin in the next summer. So, but it's just a wonderful idea. It's something that had happened in the past, and we're sort of reviving it based on need and staffing commitment. So anyway, any questions about that update before I go to the next update? Okay, I think the next update might segue into another topic later today, but I wanted to share with you what Vice President Estella has shared with me. She's also not here today, and both of them are not here with regret, but she left me a fairly detailed update. So collaboration with UNR, one of the things that I observed immediately upon my arrival was that we've done a really great job beginning an international student program where we have about 50 students annually. What we've decided to do is expand that program, taking our existing resources and adding to them just a little bit, not too much, with the goal of seeing that number rise to a couple of hundred in the next couple of years. Part of the reason we do that is to really have a campus that's internationalized, so that when we talk about diversity, yes, we're talking about the co-cultures that live and work in Reno, but we're also talking about international diversity. That type of diversity really enriches the learning experience for the local students because they get to interact with students from all over the world. So we're attempting to do that. And of course, the second reason is that's also revenue generation. So simply put. So we are working with UNR in order to do some partnerships. For example, UNR, they take in international students as well, and I can't recall precisely how many, but I know it's over 100. But some of them they turn away because they're not up to par on the TOEFL scores, which is a mark of conversational ability and reading skills in English. So we're entering into a partnership where we try to bridge those gaps, and we'll take those students in, give them some time to sort of build their remedial. Remedial is not the right word. It's more of a bridge program for those learners whose English is a second language, who are fairly well educated typically. And so we're pretty excited about that because I think that our student services has a really great relationship with their student services, and I think it's going to work, and I think it will help both campuses because UNR will benefit when those students are prepared. They can have a transfer pathway to UNR, which is great. Okay, I'm sure you're excited to hear about our Career Center updates.
Yes.
Right, okay, Career Center updates. So these are some metrics. Since May 6th, employer registrations increased 17%. We now have a total of 813 employers registered through the Career Center, which is terrific. Student registrations increased 11% for a total of 2,066, which I think is impressive considering that's over the summer, when our students a lot of them just aren't around. So, point-in-time job postings, 164, down 8% since May 6th, but not surprising with the summer break. Internships, we had 24 internships for the 2015-16 academic year. This is an area that I think we need to look at building, and you've probably talked about that in the past. I would love to see that number multiplied by 10. Okay, my staff is probably out there having a small heart attack right now, but you know, right, but really to really beef that up. And the other phrase that I've been using, and this was the sort of the phrase from my former system, is the phrase applied learning. That if it's not a full-blown internship, is there an applied learning opportunity that is either embedded in certain courses, so all the students in that course take advantage of that applied learning opportunity, or they're modified sort of quasi-internship opportunities for students that we could call applied learning, because these are really crucial. We've got 3 tentatively scheduled for fall 2016, but the staffing is busily working on expanding that. So, other work experience, 285 students in student employment positions. I gotta tell you, yesterday we had a retreat with management, and in the afternoon there were about 50 of us. And we were trying to decide what makes us distinctive compared with all the colleges around us. And this is one of the areas that I think truly is distinct. And that is that we do an amazing amount of student employment positions. But in addition to that, what I've observed, coming as someone with a relatively new perspective, is that the training that those students receive and the expectation that we put on those students is excellent. That's why when you go to the financial aid office and you see the flames greeting you behind a counter, they're all smiling, ready to help you. So I think this college has done a marvelous job around student employment positions, which is terrific. 675 students are in courses such as clinicals, practicums, and on-campus experiences, including the internships. And this one's great. David mentioned this yesterday at our retreat. I love this one. 2,330 volunteer hours tracked through the SGA. That's just the ones that the Student Government Association is tracking. That's really fantastic. And these are service hours that are really meeting a community need. And so the more we can build on that, the better, in my opinion. Any questions so far? I'm almost done with the Stella's updates. So summer transition programs, student tours of City of Reno departments with personnel interviews, discussions about what they do and what kind of education they had to get there. The summer transition program is a grant-funded summer bridge type experience for students with disabilities, and 11 students participated. Internship week event is scheduled for fall during the week of October 10th. Startup fair scheduled October 6th in cooperation with UNR's Career Studio, hosted by EDON. Thank you very much. And there's a fall job fair scheduled for October 10th, Veterans Job and Resource Fair November 4th. So as you can see, there is a lot going on. So finally, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've been talking about internal to campus related to vision. A lot of community members in particular have walked up to me and said, so Karen, what's your vision? It's like, what's my vision for TMCC? Well, first of all, there is for a new president, there's a tension with that question, because the tension is you want to have a vision that is crafted collectively with those who are internal to a college. On the other hand, you've hired a president with 30 years of experience at community colleges. And I have been involved in accreditation also at 2 different accreditors, pretty extensively involved, and I've visited a lot of community college campuses from the standpoint of an evaluator. So you have hired someone who sort of knows the score, I guess, when it comes to community colleges and what we are capable of achieving, right? So I am going to offer some recommendations and suggestions, but what I really wanted you to know today is that in the next few months, we will be conducting a series of conversations on campus. I also think that at our next meeting of the IAC, we might want to take some time to ask this group to participate in an identical conversation. And the conversation is all about what makes TMCC distinctive. What are our strengths that are relatively unique to this institution? And taking those strengths and those judgments, how can we craft a collective vision? What is that vision? What's the best of who we are? And of those things, where can we take those things further? So an example of that is one of the things I see at this college is all of the elements are in place for a brand and a vision that are very health-centric. So what that means is that we're the college that cares deeply about healthy people, a healthy food shed, a healthy watershed, and a healthy economy. Not necessarily in that order, right? But that it's a vision of what does it mean to be a healthy human being in American society? And how are we part of that message and that value in everything that we do? Can that permeate this institution? When I look at this institution and I look at the programs we offer, and when I've met so many wonderful people who've worked here for a long time and some not so long, but I do see that this could be an emphasis that could really work. But there might be others. There might be, what I've said to people is part of these conversations is, I'm hoping someone comes up with something even better, right? Based on your knowledge and your experience with TMCC. And trying to craft a vision and a brand that carries us to the next chapter. Something loose enough, I guess, and vague enough, I guess, that we can build on it, and broad enough to continue to inspire. But for example, when I look at the Health Careers Building, that is a beautiful facility with some excellent people with strong industry connections that I plan on strengthening even more so. Connections with hospitals, for example. To have those three components is distinctive. The community colleges I've seen, they get 2 out of 3 done, but they don't have all 3 done. To have all 3 at TMCC at the Redfield location is incredible. The same thing is happening at Edison, but it's happening in industry. To have great people, strong connections to industry, and now you're going to see a marvelous facility if you haven't already seen the renovations. Unbelievable. To have those 3 elements in place is extremely unique. We should be drawing a 500-mile radius around our campus and marketing that to every student within that radius, because it's really impressive. And that fits with the healthy economy. But that's all part of it. So anyway, so there's my suggested vision, but the conversations need to ensue, because the tension for me is I don't think one person should say, oh, here's a vision, let's do it. You know, it really needs to be more spontaneous and more collaborative than that. So, okay. The 2 things that have happened over the summer, we are kind of attempting to expand capacity with international. I mentioned that a moment ago. The other thing that I noticed is that we've done some great things around sustainable campus operations, ways to improve our energy savings, ways to create a sustainable environment, ways to reduce our carbon footprint. In order to even strengthen those preliminary efforts, we made a bit of a staffing change. Jill Atkinson, who runs our Equity and Inclusion Office with Yvonne, she's also been doing compliance, and I don't think that structure has worked very well for the organization. So we've taken that off her plate. We'll be moving that to Human Resources. And instead, she's going to use that extra time to begin to coordinate a campus culture of sustainability. She'll be working with students, and the students are already, maybe David can share it. She's just so enthusiastic. I'm going to let you share for 1 minute on that. And then we're going to also invite faculty to compete for a little bit of release time to help Jill with this effort. Because ideally, you want some of your curriculum to sort of be thematically connected to sustainability efforts. And my view of sustainability is also very much interconnected to the economy. I really believe you need to move, not slowly is not the right word, but we do need to be cautious that when we switch over to renewables, for example, we want to do so in a way that doesn't mean a whole bunch of jobs are gone, that we really do need to be more strategic and methodical, and so that it can really be a win-win for everybody concerned. Anyway, but that said, did you want to share the water bottle announcement?
So Jill Atkinson approached the SGA and informed us of what her task was with moving towards a sustainable and renewable campus. And she said that they were looking to different departments for funding for water bottle refill stations. And she informed the SGA of what the cost was for each water bottle refill station, which is $2,000 per water bottle refill station. And that they were looking to have at least 6 installed in Dandini and then move to the outside campuses. Well, SGA went ahead and approved $12,000 for the installation of all 6 of the water bottle refill stations here on the Dandini campus, and we asked if administration can work towards matching us so that the other campuses can also have the water bottle refill stations.
Right. And by the way, the water bottle refill stations are very cool because they have a counter that tells you how many plastic bottles you're not using as a result of the fact that you're reusing a bottle. So they're really an educational tool as well to get people to start thinking about the little things that we do during our day that don't really help the environment. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, but if I could have 1 minute. When you mentioned that yesterday, I didn't know about water, an interest in water. I didn't have an opportunity to speak to you about this, and then David just told me about the water thing a few minutes ago, and I was excited. I want to also mention that the faculty have a group called FREE, Faculty for Radical Empowerment and Enlightenment. And we do an interdisciplinary group every year on a theme, and last spring we decided this year it would be water.
Oh.
And we actually have an artist who's going to be doing a show, who's coming in from Idaho on water. We have, in our chemistry department, we have Samir Batari, who's done research on our watersheds with his students before. And we also have a new anthropology tenure track faculty, Dr. Joylyn Namey, who has done research on water perception. So we'll bring in other faculty and we'll bring our classes across many disciplines together and discuss the concept of water this year.
I think that's so exciting.
It's just a coincidence, really, but it's exciting. Or maybe it's the time. Maybe it's the time.
Yeah, it is the time, definitely. So great, thank you for sharing that. The last two things that I wanted to talk about was a little bit about capital. So I'm still trying to figure out how we get money for new facilities at community colleges in Nevada. And it's fascinating, I'll just say that. And I can tell you that, and by the way, it's been fascinating in every state I've worked, so we're no exception. But hopefully we can work on that in the next couple of years. This is where I think an IAC can be extremely powerful, so that we don't end up in a place 10 years from now where facilities are literally crumbling because there is no structural way to get capital projects funded at the community college level. And so that said, we've got two sort of plans in the works. One relates to the fact that I had the audacity in my interview with David and the student leaders to mention that I thought the college could use some athletics. So the students have taken that and they are really running with it, and I'm very pleased about that. So David is working with his student leaders on really creating a legacy, and the legacy would take the form, the word David used was stadium. Now, I thinking soccer field, track, lacrosse field, and David also has interest in his students in a swimming pool. So the administration has agreed to fund a pre-design so we can give to the students estimates of costs for those types of projects. We do have a pretty good location on campus. There's 14 acres that the campus currently owns, kind of on the other side of, is it not Raggio Parkway? I think I've got that correct. Yep. And so there seems to be a good area for this, and part of that area has some level field. But it would be a major construction project. But I wanted to let you know that because the administration, we're going to do everything we can to support the students in their quest. And part of what the students are intending to do is to charge a fee to help construct the field and then to help eventually get to some sports. And there's all kinds of sporting opportunities in this region. Of course, there's the low-hanging fruit, intramurals, fun sports that we just do together. Club sports is becoming quite active, and that's some of the community colleges are doing that. I have a lot of experience with the NJCAA, and I've been at two colleges where we had Division III sports, which is really a nice way to go. We would add sports pretty gradually, but we're feeling very confident, I think, about soccer as something that the community would really, really embrace. But this is another item for you to think about. I know that many of you have the workforce background, but you also are invested in your communities. So I'm sure that the student governments would appreciate hearing from you what you think might work. Again, to me, it fits with what a healthy campus is, that you really can't separate the mind from the body in some respects, and the more that we can have students active, I think the better it is for our brains and for our development as people. So we're excited. I'm very excited about that. Finally, the one that you recall from last year was the Performing Arts Center. And that idea was shared with the regents in June as an informational item. I think the regents have expressed some concerns about that project. And so we've been having some good discussions internally. And I think what we're planning on doing at this point is hiring the architects back to continue to do some work on pre-design and present some other options. But the latest option that I've been discussing with people, because I think we're just so primed for this, is to connect a theater or auditorium really with an expansion of our culinary arts department. We have a fantastic culinary arts director. We also have about 175 students a year going through that program. We think we could expand that quite a bit if we had a new restaurant and a couple of new kitchens, including a specialized pastry baking kitchen and a community learning kitchen, and really create an institute around culinary arts. something that could not just serve Nevadans, but could also scoop up some Nevadans who are traveling to California to spend $40,000 a year at some of the private culinary institutes, right? And so we think that we are primed. What we're missing, we've got the people, we've got the industry connections, but we need a facility. I also believe that the regents are more inclined to fund, well, approve, they don't fund at this point, but to approve of a theater project if connected to that project is culinary arts and hospitality. So, and when you look at the EDON numbers, entertainment is still really one of a very robust sector of the Nevadan economy, right, when it comes to jobs. So the culinary arts director is very excited about this idea, and I'm excited about this idea, but it basically links fine arts with workforce, and I think that that's really important. So that's it. I think I got through my list.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't. I forgot one thing. Oh, no, I did. I forgot one thing, and this is really important. The other thing that we're working on is, and again, this will probably come to the regents in December. I would like to honor the fact that we recently graduated 123 residents who earned their high school equivalency through the Truckee Meadows Community College High School Equivalency Program. That's amazing. That's amazing. And if you've not been to a graduation, I would strongly encourage it. It's just heartwarming because these are people that, you know, age range from 20 to 45, you know, all across the board. Lots of different reasons why they are earning their high school equivalency as opposed to a traditional high school diploma. But it's very exciting. I think that if we really want to, if we care about the health of our economy, we need to care about those residents. We really do. And we need to get them into our economy as very productive employees and employers, okay? I think one of the things that happens with that population is after they get their high school diploma, many of them just stop. You know, they figured, okay, this is fine. This will sort of pay my bills, right? We have an interest at Truckee Meadows Community College of keeping that pipeline going, getting them to go to college right away, whether it's a training program in manufacturing or maybe it's a transfer program in education. To me, it doesn't matter. I just want them to stay in school. Keep up the motivation. In order to do that, it is helpful to offer a tuition waiver for one term in courses where there are seats available. So it's really zero cost to the college in some respects, but it's an incentive for those students to not stop out or never return. So this will require a language change in some of the regent policies. I've talked to a few regents now, and they're very supportive of it. And the language would allow community colleges flexibility for a limited number of tuition waivers if the intent is to keep that pipeline going. Of course, Kyle's been tasked with working on stronger language than that. Keep the pipeline going, you know. So, but that's in essence what the goal is.
Dr. Hildesmuth, if I could just add to that. So the research that we've been doing indicates that there are about 40,000 adults without high school equivalency or diplomas in Washoe County. And given the strong need that we have to be moving people into the employment pipeline, the greater capture rate that we can have from all of the entities that are doing high school equivalency, that's another one of those numbers that needs to be multiplied by about 10 really in order to meet the needs of the community, but to get them into the pathway and to keep them moving through into employment, into certificates, then perhaps associate's degrees, then perhaps go on to college if they choose to. But that group is a really target for the community because we need all of the people who can to be getting into that pathway.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I am done.
Do we have any questions on this at this time, or can we, Mike?
Yeah, if I could just add to Nancy's comment, and she sent me all the data, and I've had a chance to dig into it. It's actually 44,000, more than 10% of our workforce. And they cannot even apply for a job at Tesla, Switch, or course here at TMCC without a high school equivalency. So we pretty much put them in a black hole and said, good luck with minimum wage. At the same time, we're scrambling to try and fill jobs that are paying $25 to $50 an hour. So we are, as an organization, will connect with a lot of the partners, and obviously TMCC is one, and there's, you know, a couple of other agencies and schools that are helping do this, but the numbers are, as we mentioned, it's, you know, in the hundreds, and it needs to be in the thousands. So we're working with the state, we're looking at funding. We talked to the director of Dieter and others to see where do we get funding to help support this, because it doesn't just happen. We don't wave the magic wand, but if we can do that, these are all excellent candidates to plug right into the community college system and move into the tracks that will pop out and fill these jobs that are coming to our community. So it is a priority for EDON. It's clearly a need from a workforce perspective, and it's something that I think, you know, I appreciate you mentioning it, because it will be one of our priorities.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. I think that's something that ties right in with what we've been talking about, is how do we get students into the programs? We can all talk about all these fabulous programs, but if we don't have people signing up to take these fabulous courses, and that was something I was actually thinking about this morning, as to whose job is it? In other words, and that for some of these manufacturing things, like if I need machinists, that's my problem. I have to start encouraging people to go in. But I think for a lot of these newer companies coming in, it's got to be a combination of the community and economic development to figure out how we do this. So thank you very, very much. We will be touching on some of these comments again. First of all, on the metrics, which thank you, Karin, for going over them. The first two sets I did, to the best of my ability, to get the numbers, but I want a big thank you to Sydney and Elena, who took over this project for us and will be moving forward with it. We will be working on getting the data better and better, but they are doing a wonderful job of taking this on, and I thank them very much for doing that. And then, let's see, we'll be moving on now to the IAC council member outreach reports, which to hear what all of you have been thinking and doing, and suggestions, and what we should be doing, what you've been doing, and to learn about what we think this school is doing properly, and any thoughts we have on changes or whatever. Everything that we will be discussing today will be reported to the regents, not once, but 4 times between now and mid-September. So we want you to really get your input. I will probably be coming back to you on clarity as we go forward. I will also be sending information on what all these meetings are, when they are, and you know, how each of us can participate. But we will, on the 1st of September is the Community College Committee meeting, at which we will, Cora and I will be reporting. On September 8th, there will be the continuation of the meeting of the chairs of the IACs. We had a meeting after the last meeting in May, and that was very successful, getting together the 4 chairs of the IACs and having a good discussion of what is it we're supposed to be doing. We're doing very different things. It's a very interesting learning, and we will be continuing that meeting, and I will be sending you all the minutes of those meetings. They're very, very interesting. We will then move on. That meeting was perceived to be so successful in forwarding the mission of the IACs that the regents put in 2 more meetings for us. One is a meeting of the chairs of the IACs with the chair and vice chair of the regents and the chair and vice chair of the Community College Committee of the regents. Just that group meeting for an hour and a half before the regents meeting. And then we will also be meeting with, it is our turn to report to the regents So on September 8th or 9th, I will be reporting on behalf of the college to the full Board of Regents. Moral support is warmly encouraged. Newt was kind, and Michonne were kind enough to come and, kind of push me up in front of that podium last time. But I will be sending you information on all of these meetings, and the most important thing is we're really connecting with the other IACs. We are connecting with the regents. All the IACs have had great connections to their presidents. We're now looking at the other side of this, because we're kind of in the middle. And so we're getting a very good connection with the regents, and I think that's very exciting for all of us, because we will be going into the legislative session. So one of the big questions is, how do we participate? Representing primarily TMCC, which is our job, but also representing all the community colleges and NSHE, and to coordinate all of that so that we are properly doing it and truly getting our message across and trying to really influence what is happening. So we will be following up on that as we move along through the next couple of meetings. That's going to be sort of a focus as to how we can do this. And so I will start with Brad, who is kind enough to rejoin our.
Well, I was in a unique position over the last 6 months, 7 months, that so every 3 weeks I got to spend 6 days in St. Mary's Hospital. And I spent a lot of time talking with nurses, doctors, the things they need there. And I can tell you there were often times when a shift would come on and they would be down 2 or 3 nurses and trying to cover floors. And one of the things I started doing was I started asking the individual nurses where they went to school, where they got their education, how they, and some went to UNR and some went to TMCC. The thing I always heard from the TMCC individuals was that this campus, there was much more hands-on training than what they got at UNR. UNR was more theory than application. And so to be able to talk to other nurses about where are you taking your next step in nursing? You may want to look at TMCC. And through our foundation board and Janice, I believe her name was, a nurse there who was a graduate from TMCC, came to speak at our nurses' pinning ceremony. And the great thing about her was that she came from TMCC to St. Mary's Hospital in her first year. She was Nurse of the Year, and then I think when she went to the oncology, she was then the Nurse of the Year there as well. It's just, but to take her and start having her talk to other nurses and younger nurses coming in, and some of the interns that were coming through, able to use her to do that same thing. To then talk about Redfield campus. She did not get to experience Redfield campus, nor did many of those other students that I spoke to, because they've been doing now what they're doing for 10 plus years. To get them and ask for their involvement. I continue to go back now to the oncology ward at St. Mary's and ask them how they can help us, and to be able to come back to the campus and to speak to other students. So that's kind of, so in my limited ability, at least I was able to do that.
Thank you very much. That's very important that they seem to appreciate what TMCC is doing, and that we're respected in the.
But they have a desire to give back, and I think that goes kind of back to what we're going to be talking about, is that I know that we had hosted Jim New, myself, and Randy Walden. We had reached out to a company about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. We went to their Haas Corporation that makes water fountains and whatnot. And we went to their operation and viewed their operation, and we invited their manufacturing team to come then to the Edison plant. And I think that's one of those places that we could be doing the very same thing, inviting industry to come to campus to see what we have, and then also to tell us what we don't have that they need. And I think that's where we've lacked in getting out of the campus. And we can't be all things to all people, and we can't be everywhere at all times. but to reach out and through, definitely through EDON, who's the leaders in telling us what is coming down the pike, to allow them to lead us in showing us where do we need, what types of industries do we need to be talking to? Because I know through Mike and Nancy's and Stan Thomas's efforts, they will often hook up companies looking to come here with current companies so they can mesh then and understand what we have and what we don't have. I think that's important for us. I know we do that in the foundation, you know, in order to build buildings and have facilities. What are we lacking?
Marissa?
So, I'm a nurse myself, and I have contact with new graduate nurses through our workforce grant. And we obviously advocate for hospitals in the state of Nevada. So I'm very passionate about nursing and what we can do. As you know, we have a big shortage in the state of Nevada for not only nursing, but a lot of other allied healthcare positions. So we have partnered with High Sierra AHEC and put on a program called Operation Healthcare Bound, which we held here this last January. It was the first time we'd held it at TMCC, and I think it went so very well. We had 400 to 500 students from the elementary schools that came in, and TMCC was represented here, obviously, and was able to talk to the students about the programs they offer. Our booth was mostly focused on healthcare, and we were able to talk to the students about the importance and also what opportunities there are available for those healthcare, for those interested in a healthcare career, not only in nursing, but other certificate type programs. Through our workforce grant, we've worked very closely with TMCC, and they've always been so accommodating with regards to developing programs where we see there's gaps. So in talking to them about resume writing and Dress for Success and those kinds of things where maybe those students that are graduating from high school or even looking for an allied healthcare position don't have experience in. And we also talk to these students about furthering their education. I hear from employers a lot that, like you said, there is a gap in academics to a clinical position. And UNR does focus mostly on theory and leadership type skills. I hear from employers very often that the TMCC nurses, that they integrate into a clinical career much more easily because I think they have that experience. And it makes that transition a little bit easier for the student as well. So through our Operation Healthcare Bound program, which we hold annually, and through the interaction that I have with new grad nurses, I'm very passionate about nursing, and I can help them see the opportunities that there are, I guess, available for employment. So, and in speaking to employers too, you know, I talk to them very frequently about possible internships and what the advantage that would be to, you know, if they have an interest, to please get a hold of me, which in turn I can get a hold of TMCC about that, you know, to be able to and I guess through the employee board, you post internship programs on there too, right, the career board. So I guess that's another avenue we need to look at too, but that's what I've been doing.
Thank you. Scott, if I could go to Newt, because I know he
Yes,
has to go
right.
early, and so we'll.
Thanks, Collie, thanks. At our last session, which was on the South Campus, we had Dr. Ryan with us, and I also gave a short presentation along with Matt LaBranch about the evolution of IGT in the community and how we're now structured and what it's meant to the Reno community, all of which, by the way, has been positive. As a result of that, Dr. Ryan got in touch with us, and through EDON also, we just hosted 50 teachers from the Reno school system at IGT from all over, from all branches of education, with big emphasis on math and sciences. But we also had even the welding and other disciplines and activities. We did 2 hours of discussion and presentation with various of our on-campus leaders, including some that I chose because I know they're good in these environments, and also that they had students in high school or colleges themselves. And so they had that sort of direct, sort of hands-on in their lives right now. And so we did a piece on engineering, we did a piece on information technology, we did a piece on accounting, let's see, what else did we do? I don't recall right now, but we did several hours of pretty good presentations and some good interaction with all of the educators. To talk about the skill sets, the educational background, and the kinds of personality traits that people look for in hiring at IGT. The whole idea being these teachers can go back then to their classrooms and be more equipped to prepare their students for eventual employment. What are these industries, what are these people who hire in the community looking for? What talents do they need? What skill sets do they need? What graduate or undergraduate or community college degrees do they need? But also very importantly, what kinds of characteristics do we need in these people? With a lot of emphasis on three things. In addition to skill sets and education, the general theme continued to be, we need people who are collaborative, work with others, plays well with others, all the way back to first and second grade report card. Secondly, problem solver. Don't just stop. Keep moving ahead. Solve the problem in front of you. Be collaborative if you need to be, and of course you need people who are professionally responsible. And that was the theme that continued through the discussion, with also then a lot of discussion on where people can prepare themselves skill-wise and educationally, with the emphasis on what's available in our community, with TMCC obviously receiving attention in that whole process too. It was really healthy. And many then expressed the desire to come back and get more hands-on tours, which we like to do also. We need to do it in smaller groups. Obviously, you can't haul 50 people around the building. You get kind of stuck in front of front-end loaders and that kind of stuff with 50 folks. So you got to keep it. You got to keep the tours smaller. They'll be coming back. They were all interested. We had a lot of good interaction and a lot of good questions. Dr. Ryan, I think, was really pleased with how it happened, and actually, it was a lot of fun. So we enjoyed it, and we'll do it again. So.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope that's collaborative amongst this group that did that, and thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I hope that you can sort of give us a syllabus of how you did that, because if we can replicate that, Nancy? Okay.
I was really making it up on the fly, given
Maybe somebody wrote it down.
all of the, and I was like up with the engineer. I mean, I had to beg this guy to come up and do this, and he eventually did it. Worked it.
How they work.
But we got it done. We got it done. What it turned out to be was, I think, a pretty good syllabus or organization that I can replicate. I'd suggest some changes, and the like. But I think we did a pretty good job under the tight timetable with as many as we had, and the late arrival due to an accident and all kinds of stuff that you always work. Man, you got that many people involved in something, there are going to be issues, so. But overall, very successful, and I'll be happy to replicate the syllabus or schedule or agenda or whatever it was, okay?
Great, thank you very, very much. Thank you. And Scott?
Yes, Councilmember Knudsen set me up really well, and thank you for hosting our crew.
Yeah, good bet. Yeah.
That was one of my celebrations, actually. I'll add to your 50, however. Let's start with the beginning of the school year. This is day 5 of the instructional year out of 180 instructional days. Not that I'm counting. Last week, we had full staff come back, so it's about 9,000 employees, and they were gearing up for the arrival of some 64,000 students Monday. Again, this is day 5, with 64,000 students for lunch every day. What I'd like to celebrate with what Councilmember Knudsen just stated is that not only have we had 50 go to IGT for a tour, but Dr. Ryan and I were counting up last night approximately how many staff we've had actually visit out at the industrial center so far, and including my entire office that are non-school based. Come October this year, we'll have nearly 500 employees that have actually taken a tour of one of the assets out in the center. And I'd like to give a shout out to Councilmember Kazmierski and certainly Councilmember McCormick for opening those doors for us. It's been tremendous. And it fits right in the traditional tone of the first week of school, if not the first day of school, when the teacher's standing in front of their kids and asking, what do you want to do when you grow up? Because we've definitely changed that dialogue now. It's not the traditional, I want to be a nurse. No offense.
No, that's okay. We
I want to be a
understand.
fireman, I want to be a policeman, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. There's so many more opportunities in this new frontier, and they're right in our backyard. So it's important to expose staff to those opportunities so they then better understand these pathways that Dr. Ryan, in collaboration with TMCC, are building as a critical step to those highly skilled jobs and a high-paying career in our own community. So I applaud those efforts. It's very collaborative with TMCC and others. The second thing is, thank you to our new president. We continue to host our administrator trainings. Our back-to-school kickoff this year, led by our superintendent, is housed here, hosted here, if you will, at TMCC. And we also do major teacher trainings. We have a concept called Saturday Cafe, which is an extension of the administrator PD. That occurs, as stated, on a Saturday here. We sometimes have actually over 500 teachers running about the facility. So that's another key inroad to exposing our staff to that next step at the community college level, physically and through collaboration and speaking with your staff. So thank you for hosting us. That's my report.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. That is absolutely marvelous to have the teachers. That was one of the hardest things, especially in the industrial area. The rumor we're still, it's dirty, dark, dank, dangerous, dumb. There's a lot of D's involved, and it's not. And I just applaud you and thank you so much for getting the teachers into our facilities and into the facilities and opening everyone's eyes as to the great possibilities. And that's marvelous. It's something we want to keep going. Chris?
We're on the verge of starting the program for logistics. There is a dinner coming up that's going to allow us to expose the community to the new program. We've got, right now, it's not we, but school has got a number of major companies have bought into sponsorship of the program, and I think we're going to see a big change. I'm a little disappointed to see on our metrics that logistics is not a separate entity, because I have a sneaking suspicion that it would be the largest one on there.
It could, I think, one of the things is we're cleaning the data a little bit, and this is sort of rough. We are working very hard to make sure to pick up correctly.
Yeah.
At this point, the companies are self-identifying as to what they're in, and it's a little, sometimes I think they're ending up, but we'll start looking for those.
I'm just hoping that, I think we're going to find that it's one of the largest, if not the largest group here at this stage of the game, from the standpoint of both body count. I mean, when you start seeing some of the new facilities that are being built around town, I mean, it's getting pretty crazy, especially out towards Stead now with the new facilities that Dermody has put together. The CALM, the Center for Applied Logistics Management, which is the support entity for the new program, will start becoming a lot more active after this dinner. I think that's going to be kind of our kickoff piece of that. Our business has been working on putting together an intern, how to use an intern outline.
Excellent.
We feel that one of the biggest problems with interns in probably most industries is a real lack of understanding of how to utilize an intern. We're hoping that we'll be able to pretty much make a little bit of a breakthrough in that arena so that we can educate businesses that do hire somebody to bring them in and make sure that it's an experience that was both valuable for both of them. We want to try and replicate the program that is in the University of Pennsylvania's logistics program, where they create a competition for dollar savings that are developed by interns that do go and work for people. It's a pretty amazing program, and their goal is to make sure that it's a minimum of $250,000 a year in savings for the particular company that somebody goes to work for. So if we can, I don't know, maybe we can make it $25,000 to begin with, but we want to see a actual developed outcome for the businesses that do hire or get an intern. Another one of my goals within the CALM thing is to be in a position to support funding for interns. I think a lot of businesses don't buy on to an intern because they don't feel they have the funding for it, or they can't see the value in hiring somebody for 6 weeks or whatever the process might be. And that if we can create maybe a matching fund or something like that within CALM, so that when the interns are hired, that there's a real value for the business in the long run. So they're not doing it for some reason like that. My goal would be that having an intern is a requirement.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think we're making some good progress. The whole thing with logistics is going to be huge.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic. Are you going to keep us all kind of posted on some of these things that we
Oh, yeah.
can
When we
participate
get,
with?
like I
and
say, it's
support you? And
our coming out party is going to be that dinner. And so, and we've got Tesla on board and some other people that have bitten into this thing. I will say that we as a business are one of the very few in town that actually does work for Tesla, for instance. We supply and fulfill all of their sales department arenas. So all of the places around the country where they have a shop, we provide all of the stuff. So you guys, we've got like 75,000 Tesla hats in the building right now. So it's stuff. Everything, Tesla chairs, the Tesla hats. The cool thing about it is what we're doing here affects everybody in the country. So, and it's been a very good relationship with them.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that. That's exciting.
Yeah, thank you. So, Councilman Bender, is the dinner, are you referring to the Food, Wine, and Futures event of September 22nd? Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that is the same dinner. And Dean Marie is in the audience, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything about the logistics program that is launching this fall. It's really exciting because it's one of the first of 2 applied baccalaureate degrees that we're rolling out this fall. And I know the rest of you are probably aware of that, but if you have any updates from your perspective, Marie's the dean putting it all together. So.
Yes, Marie Mergalopour, Dean of Division of Business. Thank you, Chris, for highlighting the program. We're really delighted. I think probably the one thing that hadn't been mentioned, we do have a space that's getting outfitted now. It's in the Meadowwood North building, and that's where the Center for Applied Logistics Management will be housed. And we're really excited about the collaboration with our advisory board and industry in general to get that up and going. We will do a kickoff of that in early in the fall, and we'll be making some exciting announcements around that. Also, I just wanted to mention that a year ago we didn't have a full-time tenure track faculty member, so we've had one in place for a year now, and between that and the mentoring he's been doing with students and the announcement of the BAS program, we took a program that had around 25 students at any one time declared, and we are over 100 students now declared in logistics. So that pipeline is building up. The bachelor's degree will start with small numbers this year, but as that pipeline of Associate of Applied Science students make their way through, we'll see it swell really quickly in a year and a half to 2 years. So I think that's about all the updates that Chris didn't mention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, I'll start first by reinforcing the importance of logistics. I think as a community, we have always been strong in logistics. Our strategic location is unique. We are truly the center of the West. You can do one-day ground transportation to 11 western states. There's no other place that does that. What's happened in our consumer environment has made overnight, next-day delivery more important than ever. And we've all been on our computers, and 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you'd order something online, if we even did it online, and we would expect to see it in a week. Now we are waiting, we push the buy button, and we're waiting for the doorbell to ring. It's the expectations are so dramatically changed that our strategic location is now more important than ever. In fact, when we talk logistics, we talk distribution, we're really talking e-commerce now and the whole e-commerce piece. And now the newest phase of that is m-commerce and what they call snacking, where you are waiting at a stoplight and you buy something on your phone.
Yeah, that's right.
And so the m-commerce piece plays in the e-com, and we are really at the key point in the West for that. So to take advantage of that change in our consumer environment and our strategic location is a huge opportunity. And I would say of the numbers you have here, the 271 and other, you know, I would agree with Chris, a big chunk of that is probably in logistics, distribution, e-commerce, that whole place. Because about a third of the companies we're bringing in now, roughly, it ebbs and flows, but you're talking probably 8 to 10 new companies every single year in e-commerce and logistics distribution. And that demand for workforce, if you talk to John Perrell at Job Connect, we call and say, oh, we got another e-commerce company. He says, go away, we don't have any people. Well, the reality is we don't have any people. We've run out because of that growth. And so getting our community to understand that is a pipeline to great jobs. It wasn't that great 4 years ago. They were paying $10, $11, $12 an hour, and we were filling those jobs pretty quick. Now they're paying $18, $19, $20 an hour, and we're having a hard time filling them. And because of it's a supply and demand issue. Because they can't find the labor, they got to pay more, and they're stealing from each other. So it's one of those challenges now that we can take advantage of here as a community college. So that's just a pile on there, Chris.
Yep. Mike, can I ask you just a clarifying question? Isn't it also that the skill sets have exponentially grown in that field as well? It used to be, you know, hand trucks and paper pushing. Today, a lot of electronic, you know, understanding of that's how they do their inventories. You know, it's not just all just.
No, the whole technology piece is so much more important. It's like manufacturing versus advanced manufacturing. The logistics now is different than it was. You still need pickers and packers, but now if you walk through the Amazon building, the automation is unbelievable. And the investment there. And the person that fixes that automation is getting paid a whole lot more than a picker and packer. So it's a pretty complex ecosystem now that we're a part of, and it's kind of fun to see that development. Our real focus is sometimes I wonder if we don't work for the community college.
But you do, you do. Now that you understand how this really works.
I keep waiting for that paycheck, though. No. You know, clearly the teacher connection, and Nancy will talk about that a little bit more, to business has been one of our top priorities over the last several years. And getting the tours and, you know, paying for the buses and buying lunches and working with the educators and talking to our industry, you know, because our businesses are busy. And when Nancy has to say, hey, we want to run 50 people through your facility, and they're going like, hell no. And then we have to, you know, Nancy's pretty good at twisting arms. So we twist a few arms and get the doors open, and it makes it really important. So that connection business to education has been our priority. We continue to work that very aggressively. It is incredibly important for business to understand that the relationship with education is key to their long-term success. And that connection allows for them to do the things that we're seeing now, the opening their doors, they're providing equipment at some of the facilities, they're investing in and supporting some of the programs. We see that getting better and better every single day. And I would attribute a lot of it one, to Nancy's effort. She's made that clearly one of her pushes. But we brought on board a workforce, really a workforce development person, attraction person, specifically focused in that context, Valerie Cotta, and she's running around everywhere, knocking on doors and harassing the hell out of people, which is really good at. So that connection continues to be our top priority as we move forward. But the subset of that is workforce development. And when you talk about workforce development, you're talking about taking the talent we have and matching it with the needs of the employers, and then getting them developed to the position that they can fill those needs. And what's right in the middle of that? TMCC. I mean, the vast majority of it. The reality is you've got to have a feeder there on the K through 12 system that's STEM focused now more than ever and pushes into that development process. And then you've got the university piece, which does a lot of the higher end stuff, and they're going to do that regardless of what, in many cases, the demand of industry is. But it's the TMCC piece, which I hear, as of last week, TMCC now has more students than the university. Is that true?
Have to be undergrads.
Total students, someone said it was 22,000, so I don't know.
I think our head count is around 11,000, is that correct?
Full-time?
Yeah. That's head count.
Okay.
So registered students, you have about,
The fact that
Well, you'll be bigger than them someday.
Soon.
I'm actually
great.
proofreading the
Okay.
new fact book as we speak, multitasking. Elena Bubnova, for the record. Yes, so we have 6,300 full-time equivalent students, and we have 11,584 unduplicated headcount taking state-supported classes at TMCC.
So it clearly is becoming, in our view, from a needs of the employer perspective, a place where the focus has to be in developing and you know, when Dr. Hilgerson talks about how do we connect to certain industries, and while nursing is very important, you know our push has been very hard on advanced manufacturing because that's 50% of the jobs coming here, and we know we don't have the skill sets now, the STEM background, the understanding and relationship in K through 12, all of that part of the ecosystem that will ultimately build a pipeline that allows us to become what I think makes us unique, and that potential to be the advanced manufacturing hub of the West, because California doesn't want to do it, and the next closest place is probably Salt Lake City. So we have a unique opportunity when the sixth largest economy is 7 miles away. So there are some things there we're working on, workforce development, business ed competition or connections, and then just overall the push to get people to understand we are becoming an advanced manufacturing hub. Everyone knows we're good at logistics. Everyone knows we have strong roots in gaming and tourism and things like that. They don't understand that this advanced manufacturing thing is real. And when Tessa talks about the 6,500 jobs and then in a brief little statement says, oh no, we meant 10,000 jobs.
Whoops.
You know, a 3,500 job increase at the blink of an eye. The reality is that number is likely to be a whole lot larger if we can meet the needs from an employee perspective. So that's our challenge. And really, it becomes a community college challenge, so we're in it with you.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Thank you. So a number of different things that we've been doing that relate to TMCC. First, hopefully some of you saw the series of 4 articles in the Northern Nevada Business Weekly, which were really all about identifying the types of jobs that are coming to the region, as well as highlighting the service network behind them. So thank you to John Thurman, who was interviewed on one of those, and to others that participated on that, just to frame the situation relative to economic development. So it was a 4-part series on that. The second item on the referrals to education, we've made over 180 referrals to education in the last year, a combination of connecting people with programs as well as encouraging, hopefully that 17% increase is somewhat, we contributed to that employer registration of posting their jobs, reaching out to the Career Center in order to talk with them about internships and so forth. So a big focus on making those education connections across the board from the K through 12 CTE programs on up to the community college and the university. The third thing that was mentioned by Chris Bender is the Food, Wine, and the Future Committee, something that we are, I'm participating on as well, helping to get support and some financial support for that event. And so we've been successful in getting a couple of new sponsors over the last few weeks. So that's great, and really looking forward to the opportunity to highlight the technology that is a part of this region now and really open the community's eyes to the things that the TMCC Applied Technology Center is doing, the type of training and programs that are available, and also really the level of sophistication and technology that's really taking place with companies that many in the community may not even know are here. The last item I'll touch on are these visits. We've actually visited, taken people on tours of more than 12 different companies. A combination, the focus was on logistics, manufacturing, and technology. So Dana Ryan has been amazing. This started over 2 years ago when we were planning this in her office, just the two of us talking about maybe we could do one visit and how about two, which we've done at least 4. And as you say, over 500 participants. So our real focus was actually we started with the middle schools, and that was with the vice principals and the counselors who are influencing the students and really interacting with the students. And then we've broadened it out to include career and technical ed teachers and so forth. And the curriculum or the structure of the visits was specifically about not just taking them around a facility and pointing to a piece of equipment or pointing to a person sitting at their desk doing some sort of IT support. It was built into the system to have about an hour at least with the leaders of the business to be able to interact, ask questions, identify needs, skills, and the types of traits that would make for a good future employee. So really, really grateful for the participation and leadership of Dana Ryan, who has been amazing. So a lot of great things going on, and we thank everyone in the room for support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to interrupt real quick to follow up. Kyle Dalby for the record. To expand on the data on the headcount provided by Ms. Bubnova, the credit numbers, we also have a large amount of non-credit that is not state funded but is self-sufficient. And when you package all of that together on an annual basis, I want the board to be aware, you get up to a number of about 25,000 headcount students that people that we serve annually on a calendar year, going through our credit and non-credit programs. And the credit programs receive a state appropriation, the non-credit are self-supporting, and so the students pay their way through that. So you may have seen that in some of the marketing materials, and that's where that comes from. And it kind of looks like we would be above the head count of the university, but they're probably counting different with grad students and all that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll get those numbers. We've got to. In other words, we have to get up there, and that's part of what we're going to have to do. Sean?
I'll be brief, but it's interesting to hear some of the efforts to engage teachers in the K-12 system, counselors, principals, and really get them thinking along these lines. And I just want to share one other, I think, opportunity. And I think, Mike is aware of this, and Scott, you are probably as well, but one of the things is the foundation, the K-12 foundation that we support, is we are currently trying to raise money for what we call data rooms. And the district in the last few years has really, I think, advanced considerably in terms of the number of markers that they're tracking with each kid. And we became aware of it 4 years ago at Vaughn Middle School because that school had managed student progress manually. In other words, they had dots. Every student was a dot. And every time they tested a student, they would have workers come in and move the dots around. And you can imagine it took weeks to move all of these dots around. And with the help of people at the district, the administration at that school basically converted it to an electronic system. And it sounds really kind of goofy, but it's the most elegant solution and very simple because it basically assisted the school on numerous fronts. It allowed a school to have a conversation with a parent. It allowed the school to have a conversation with the student. It allowed the school to have a conversation with teachers because they could see all of a sudden very clearly how some students progressed, how others didn't. And it just opened up a great conversation. And so a year ago, we piloted the same thing at Wooster High School. Leah Kusher, the principal, took it on with a vengeance, and they did their own model where they tracked about a dozen different markers, all towards graduating kids from freshman to senior year. And again, great opportunity to bring parents in, show them where their kids are, where they're deficient, because they track everything from attendance to where you are on your ACT, SAT, everything. So put that over here. At the same time, our executive director, Karen Swope, gets invited to participate on the committee that is creating these career pathways. And it's becoming clear to us that there's a intersection here where, again, with this equipment, it might allow us to start having conversations with parents and kids their freshman year in high school about signature academies, and again, some of these opportunities career-wise that aren't currently happening. So I think between engaging teachers and counselors and maybe giving them the technology again that will allow them to have these conversations, maybe we can start making a difference with students really figuring out earlier kind of what the opportunity is. We've had 2 meetings this summer with potential donors. One is a manufacturing company who really likes the idea, frankly, of being able to use these data rooms to extend the use of them. So that's kind of my story. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That's fantastic. And I think all of us are getting ideas. I hear all these wonderful things, and it's very exciting. John.
Good morning. John Thurman, for the record. A couple of things that in regard to TMCC, and I'm always an advocate of the services that TMCC provides, certainly to employers. To Mike's and everybody else's comments around here, that TMCC is such an integral part of the educational and training process that our workforce is going to go through in order to be qualified and employable. But as it looks at from the Department of Labor and Nevada Works as a local board, we really probably prepare more people for the backfill of those who move up in the system, just simply because on the what we refer to as in our industry adult-funded programs, the targeted population is low income, low education, multiple barriers to employment. That particular population, they definitely need skills, but they need all kinds of other services, and those kind of types of services that our funding goes to in partnership with a lot of other agencies in the community. The big issues right now we're working through is, of course, our new act, and one of the issues in the new act is a requirement for reporting at the community college level, not only on those individuals who receive services funded out of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, but the entire cohort that received that education. Therein lies the problem, because on those non-credit classes that Dr. Dalpy was talking about, you're not gathering anything. You're gathering a name and a check, and they take the class. So getting the required information to report back upstream to the Department of Labor is a hurdle that we're working on, certainly working through INCHI and some others. There's some data sources out there that we can work at. ETPL is an issue that people hear about. I've talked about it before. It's the eligible training provider list. In order to spend those federal dollars, you have to be on that list. With being on the list comes that additional reporting requirements. All of this snowballs up. In our opinion, the option of not being on the list is not there. You absolutely have to have the curriculum and the classes on that list. We have to be confident that those resources are available to the system for workforce development here in Northern Nevada, Southern Nevada, and every state in the union, actually. But reporting is going to be a big, big part of that. Legislation, somebody mentioned legislation. This is a big, not necessarily concern, but certainly something we want to continue to watch. We certainly have direct information out of the governor's office. It will be a very active legislation session as it relates to economic development and workforce development, how they interact, and so on and so forth. Not sure exactly how that affects us. I'm not sure how that maybe affects EDON and their partners in economic development. Don't have an idea of really what that means to TMCC, but we do expect it to be a pretty active legislative session that relates back to workforce and so on and so forth. And had the opportunity to be in a meeting with the Department of Labor last week, very specifically about the discretionary grants that come out of the Department of Labor for workforce development, and the desire to incorporate internships and apprenticeship programs into those particular types of programs. Probably the clearest message that came out of that was, in our particular area in northern Nevada, that there's a reluctancy from the employers to be involved because they don't have anybody on staff to take care of it, is part of it. And then the other, and I think Chris or somebody over there said it, is that commitment to hire. And that's a little bit of it. So those are some hurdles that we're trying to work around and see how we can get them more involved in the process, whether it's involved directly with TMCC or the apprenticeship programs as TMCC already has, those types of things. So that's where I see a great benefit going forward through workforce development and the community college.
Thank you very much. One thing to note, when we did Right Skills Now with TMCC and WNC probably 5 years ago, which kind of got the ball rolling on a lot of these things, we actually got a commitment before anybody went into the program. We had a signed contract with the employer on the outgoing side. So we could say, we promise the community colleges we're not wasting their time, their money, or their resources. Every one of these people will be employed as an intern coming out, and we did keep, we put 40 people through, and we still have 38 of them
That's
in
been
the
a
industry
fabulous
and
program.
signed up. So it is doable. You know, you get in there and you kind of twist an arm and you get a signature, but you can get a commitment.
Yeah, exactly. And to just follow up on that, and I think you're really hitting on the key issue is, there was staff on, in your case, you put up some staff and paid for staff. You had an individual really dedicated to that. They were the champion of that program. And that's what we're needing, whether it's at the community college level or within the workforce development or wherever it is. But you need that champion that actually can go out and kind of hold a person's hand or an employer's hand, get them through all the steps. Once you've gotten through a couple of times, then it kind of goes on by itself. But it's that first time through that they really need that hands-on, one-on-one interaction.
Right. Thank you. Okay, if we could kind of, we do want to hear any ideas from Julia. We could have to kind of keep moving here, but would love to hear from you.
Just quickly on the internship thing, I'm an anthropologist, and that's not a traditional workforce area, but we've been able to place interns, student interns, not only here with Nevada BLM several times, with the Stanford University, with a museum back east, the Shield Museum, and all of these people funded our people, at least partially. The museum in North Carolina has taken our interns twice and wants to do it again. They always pay for travel and provide housing and some sort of stipend. Stanford always provides housing and some sort of stipend as well. And several other places. We've had interns go to Latin America. So there's opportunities there. And as you said, you have to hold their hands at first. They're not sure, if they've not done interns. We've done them with the shelter downtown. We actually placed an intern there one year, and then they really wanted to hire that person the next year after they'd been working in the shelter for a year. So there are opportunities in student services and in the sciences too. It does, though, take that first someone to reach out, hold their hand, and help them to figure out what an intern can do for their company or their organization. So I really support internships.
Thank you very much. I mean, that really opens up, the thinking as to, it's not just, somebody in accounting or somebody in IT, but to really broaden our thinking in this area, and that's very exciting. Thank you. David?
I had no comment right now.
Okay. Mike?
I've involved, Mike Holmes for the record, I've involved a number of the companies and the affiliations from my
prior life before academia in construction engineering and architecture here. Every semester we have a field trip to a various business, engineering testing lab, construction site, Nevada Blue, various businesses to see the operations and then the projects, and also at the same time to see how the technology that we're teaching and using, the software and the hardware, is being applied in some of the businesses. In many cases, we're ahead of where some of the dinosaurs are around here, so that's quite revealing to the students that are able to see an advantage right away before they ever get finished with the program. And through my business contacts, as the past president of the Builders Association, I've had a number of companies that have continued to, recruit interns through me, and we've farmed them out. So I've got my own little organic garden going with students, and I keep abreast of where they are, and they're constantly coming back and telling me and giving me an update about what's going on with them and their lives professionally and such. So that's something that we're doing internally, or at least I am, and it's working quite well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. To try and keep a little bit on schedule, I do have a little break now for about 10 minutes, and then we'll get back to it. We are going to move item number 6 to the end. If we don't get to it, we will reschedule it. We will be rescheduling it for the next meeting. So I want to take a break, and then we're done. We will be moving on to, I did that interestingly. All right, I will be on item 7, which is the discussion regarding mission differentiation and leveraging strengths between community colleges and the universities. This item was put on the agenda at the request of NSHE, so that we can continue discussions on this level at the Community College Committee meeting and meetings with the leadership of NSHE. And so I'll read you quickly. This is some information I got from Frank Woodbeck at NSHE, that there are 2 major discussion points, and we're free to bring up others, that they'd like to see discussed by the IACs, and that is the dual enrollment programs, Jumpstart and others, being the purview of the community colleges, especially since the delivery of programs that prepare these students for additional post-secondary education, it's less costly at TMCC than UNR. And the other one being remedial education in preparation for college work should also be the purview of the community colleges for the same reason noted above, as well as the fact that UNR and UNLV are pursuing Tier 1 status, and the admission of students that have lower than desired GPA would seem to run counter to that goal. And really what I think they're looking for is what we feel as the IAC on this subject, with input from Karen as to her feelings on the subject. We know that previous presidents felt fairly strongly on this, that there are certain programs they feel should be reserved to the community colleges, and they should not be having to compete with the university for certain cohorts of students. And so that's really what we're talking about today. Do we, it was, I believe, referred to as, may I say it, poaching of TMC students by the university, because we are so closely, here's Washoe County, here we both are, and that if a certain program looked like it was popular or seemed to have some other advantages, that the university started looking at it very seriously, where maybe these things should be left with the community colleges, or maybe there's some we wish would just kind of go to the university. So
yeah,
really,
so I do think that this is one of the most important discussions of the year. Yeah. I truly do, and I think hopefully the IAC can be well educated on this, and hopefully we can have a very clear argument related to mission differentiation. And when I say argument, I don't mean conflict. I mean an intellectual argument The article that you received that Kali forwarded was actually discovered by Elena. Elena and I had a very long conversation about mission differentiation, and I expressed my views, and I think it got you thinking. And so she discovered this very timely article related to mission differentiation. Elena and I are in the process of sort of crafting a cogent argument, not a conflict, but an argument, making the case for mission differentiation. I understand that some of the regents understand the concern, and they agree that there needs to be mission differentiation. What you discovered in that article is if the regents are truly representing the interest of the state, and if as regents they are truly aware of the financial responsibility and thought that needs to come with that mission differentiation makes a lot of sense. That why would we charge the taxpayer double the price for an educational service that can be done at a community college for half of the price? That's one of the first reasons. But there's also another compelling argument that I think I need to sort of open it up for today. And that is that when you have a pie that's sort of set, sort of a zero-sum pie, and when you know that it's not safe to assume that as we improve upon our work in public higher education, that the pie will become larger. It's really not safe to assume that. So in many respects, I go into a budget biennial session thinking, okay, let's assume the pie is set and we might get some monies for growth in certain areas, but the pie is pretty much the same pie. That when it changes, when it gets larger, it's done so incrementally. What that means is when universities begin to redefine mission in such a broad sense that suddenly community college students are sort of scooped away to a place that our budget becomes eroded, that affects the quality of what we can do in workforce development. It certainly affects the quality of what we can do in healthcare programs, the most expensive programs we offer. And in general, it just erodes the quality of what we do. And that's the second task before the regents. So there's the obvious task of what makes the most sense from a fiscal perspective when we're talking about how we spend taxpayer dollars, number one. But number two, what makes the most sense for maintaining high levels of quality at both the university and the community colleges in our state. When you look at examples related to remedial education, I found out this week that UNR served 900 students this past year in remedial math, high school level math. That does affect our budget in a negative way. The community colleges should be offering that service. The state funds us for that service. They do not fund that service for UNR, which means families are paying a lot of money to get those classes. So the question becomes, well, why aren't the families taking it from you? Well, part of that is our fault, frankly. And I can assure you that we've already got mechanisms and people in place to start making sure that we offer good access to dual credit courses at the high schools. We've recently hired the person who will direct that program, Susan, pardon me? Myers, thank you, who has a lot of experience in this area. She's excited to be on board working with us on this. So we do need to do a better job. But the other issue for us is we don't have the same kind of budgets for things like recruiting and marketing. We can't compete with that. So it makes it very difficult for us to be as flashy, I guess. And that's where it's not a free market economy. It's really an unfair economy when it comes to competition between universities and community colleges, which is why, again, the regents need to sort of set the boundaries and have and clearly define mission. And by the way, that works both ways. That also works for community colleges. I have no interest in offering bachelor's degrees designed for transfer programs. No interest whatsoever. I would much more prefer to work with UNR. I really would. I do have an interest in expanding a small number of applied baccalaureate degrees specifically linked to career technical education programs. I think that's appropriate, and I think we can do a great job with that because of our history and because of the faculty that we have on board with us now. But that again, it really does work both ways. I don't want to offer a liberal arts bachelor's degree. It's not necessary, and when UNR is doing a fantastic job in that area. Okay. Finally, on well, I think I've covered dual enrollment and remedial education, but it is a problem. I think it needs to be fixed quickly, and any thoughts that you have, any help that you can provide is really appreciated.
I'd like to hear from anybody. As I say, I'm going to, and Karen will be with me on most of these, but we will be discussing this at the Community College Committee in a couple of weeks, and would sort of like your feelings as members of the community as to really how strongly do we go in and defend our, in other words, the regions truly are interested in what the community is thinking on these matters. And so your input is going to be something we will be, it will help us.
By the way, the other thing that Frank Woodbeck mentioned is that UNR is planning on becoming sort of a R1, Tier 1 sort of research university. And that it appears that that's sort of counter to offering remedial education in the numbers that they are starting to offer them in. One of the things that I think needs to be noted is that when you look at that level of university, typically acceptance rates are anywhere from 30% to 60%, very rarely going over that. If you look at the University of Washington, for example, acceptance rates are about 55%, and I can tell you half of those are community college transfers because Washington State insists upon that. And I used to be all over those numbers when I worked in Washington State. Right now, UNR and UNLV, the acceptance rate is about 85%. So part of what the presidents have discussed is if you really want to raise that bar and be a graduate granting institution, what that also means is you might seriously consider raising the GPA requirement from a 3.0 to something higher, make it a little more competitive, but meanwhile, guarantee admissions to a community college transfer student who has earned an AA degree with typically in most states it's 2.0 or higher, meaning they've passed all of their courses. And if you honor that, if you are committed to the community college transfer, but you're also saying high schoolers, you need a 3.5 or higher because that's the kind of university we are, it will raise the bar for the level of competency for this entire region. So I think it's a wonderful idea what UNR is doing, but I don't think you can have it both ways, not for very long. I don't think it's a good use of taxpayers' dollars, and I don't think it's realistic. And I think that's what Frank Woodbeck is alluding to in his communication. So,
A couple of comments. I spent a very brief time on the K-12 committee at one time, and we did some research that, many of the, Stanford, some of the larger universities, you have to have 3 years of a foreign language, 4 years of a higher level mathematics curriculum to even get there. Right. With UNR, I think it's 2 years of math. Mm-hmm. I think it's 2 years of a foreign language. I mean, we just don't, at the lower level, at the K-12 level, we don't stress that enough, nor do we challenge those children to get there. Ergo, the remedial math, remedial English that we've had to do here. So that's one comment. The second comment, it's been about a little over a year that I've been involved, or not been involved with the industry sector councils through the WIB. And I know that a lot of companies, are on those boards. How do we get those people involved? Get those, their requirements to get them back to us, because I think that's where we've always missed the boat. Those companies, the industry sector councils, and I'll be frank, because Frank Woodbeck asked me to do a favor. They could not find a chair for the logistics industry sector council. And after serving on it for about a year and a half, I looked at, and forgive me, colleague, the gentleman
Ryan.
who worked for you, Ryan. I looked at Ryan across the room and I said, Ryan, we have the same, 90% of the skill sets were between manufacturing and logistics. Why weren't we marrying this together? Why weren't we looking at this? So, and to that point, all of those skill sets were being taught here at this level, not at the university level. Because my comments earlier about how the university teaches that at a theoretical level, not a practical level. And to be able to drive that back and drive that home is we really need to have, starting at K-12, where do we, when we graduate them, have we challenged them enough? If we've not, then where's the remedial work begin? It needs to begin here, because, yeah. And how do we tell parents, yeah, you've spent, your kids have spent all this time in high school. Now you're going to spend, 3 times the amount per unit to send them to a college, as opposed to here where, and I tried to tell my son that same thing. I said, go to TMCC for 2 years, figure out what you want to do. And now he's coming back to me saying, my college fund has really dwindled, Dad. What are we doing here? How are we going to pay the rest? And I said, well, you get a job. And, and that's where that's why he works all summer. But the point is it's the valuation of that education, the value, I guess I should say, of that education. It does come down to dollars and cents. And if you're spending it on, the same stuff you should have been learning as a sophomore in high school, now at 19 years old, that message, we need to craft that. But I also think it comes out of our government entities as well, and that's our Workforce Investment Board, that's our our industry sector councils, the companies that serve on those things, telling people carrying that same kind of message. You mentioned that at Washington State, they insisted upon that. So to me, that would be the message you'd want to carry on September 1st. This is what we need to do. We need to push that for legislative and private industry to come together.
Thank you. Mike?
I would just jump on Brad's comments and add that we don't have a system of higher education.
Yeah.
We have islands of higher education.
It's not
Good
a
point.
system.
They're in no way connected. If they were connected in any way, when you had remedial, you'd have, okay, you need to go down to the TMCC office on the university campus and sign up for the program that they will have for you on the campus. And you then bring the instructor in and you do that training, and the system allows for the two organizations to work together. And right now, it is incredibly competitive. And for those of you who read my Rodney Dangerfield article that's aggravated many people, we really, the big dog has all the money and makes all the rules. And the community colleges don't even want to be called community colleges anymore, have to fight for the scraps. And it's just not a system right now. So I would argue that until we develop a system, and it has to be a legislative system, because right now it's very competitive, and we find it's more important to build a $30 million, additional medical school, and there's a lot of good political reasons for that. It may graduate 15 Nevadans a year, rather than supporting the development of thousands of Nevadans that have job opportunities that we're not funding right now. So the system, I think, is broke.
I agree entirely with that. John?
Well, just following this theme, and I apologize because I'm going to have to run here in just a moment, but to Mike's comment, and I think he really is hitting the nail right on the head for me, is the system. And I'm going to equate this to the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is the emphasis now is on the system, which in the past, even under WIA, which replaced its predecessor, the idea was to have a system. What happened is you had a system on paper, but everybody still operated in their silos. And that's exactly what I'm hearing here. And so as we go forward with this discussion, and we are trying to figure out how to effectively create a system for the delivery of workforce services here in Northern Nevada and all throughout the state, I think that's what I'm hearing is a system between TMCC and UNR. So at that initial point of contact, those staff people have to understand the system and understand the needs of the person in front of them so that they direct them to the best source of the services for their situation, and not be worried about making sure we get them into this program so we spend our budget or we capture their tuition dollars or whatever. So to me, and I think Mike really hit it right on the head, is the system, is that we still have entities working in their little areas and not working together for the best interest of the individuals and or the employers in the area.
I think that's very important. You brought up, it's the need of the student that we have to, in other words, step back. Who are we trying to really, as NSHE, as the taxpayers of the state of Nevada, we are educating the citizens of the state of Nevada, and it is the student that we are to be serving and not some, getting back to the basics.
Bureaucratic hierarchy is what we're serving right now.
Can I take that off?
Call it what it is, Michael.
But thank you very much, because I think that's, we're coming at this from an interesting angle, but I think that looking at it, as Corin pointed out, to the dollars, in other words, what makes the most sense as taxpayers, and taking care of the community colleges, that if we can't compete, and I think this has been a theme that we've seen, but the point is we shouldn't have to compete. We shouldn't, right now we're spending dollars to compete in a game that we cannot win, and that's a waste of resources. We should not be in a competitive position in the first place. We have a mission. We are recognized that we are very, very good at what we do. I'm taking on the we, but that Truckee Meadows is an exciting, all the community colleges do incredible work with certain groups of students who wish to learn certain things and truly support the community. We are actually educating the people who are going to stay in this community and fulfill the jobs. And that should be enough. In other words, the big blue thing on the hill has their thing to do, our little green patch down here. We have our thing to do, and we should not have to be in a competitive position against, football games and medical schools and pom-poms. I think how we change that, I think that's, how do you change that?
And the article is interesting because, it's not all university sucking up resources. It's community colleges afraid of the word community and not understanding their role is workforce development and trying to compete, that drive to compete against someone you can't beat. And so now, we're the only, I love to say this, we're the only community college in the state. Of course, that's in name only, but because that effort to try and be like the big boys, you're just trying to grow up and be a big boy instead of understanding our role is not their role. And back to mission creep, workforce development. At the end of the day, if our higher education system would put the top priority for the higher education system to be to provide jobs for Nevadans, the education associated with jobs for Nevadans, as opposed to churning out pieces of paper, which in many cases are incredibly important and very valuable, but in and of themselves, that's not the purpose for the state funding of higher education. The purpose should be that job creation, that ability to fill those jobs that we're bringing into the state, and that all goes back to the bulk of that is done at the community college level. And yet, no offense to anthropologists or everything else, but if you have 50 of them and you have one job in the state, do you really want to educate 50 more? And that's the thought process we fail on, is what are the needs of the state before we commit resources of the state.
In the interest of keeping everything moving here, does anybody have any other that we really should be putting our stake in the ground and not putting ourselves in a competitive position, and to try and ask NSHE to basically protect us, I guess is the word I'm looking for in this particular case, is to allow the community colleges to define their mission and allow a protection of that mission.
I would offer Brad's point, mandate it.
Well, that's what, yes.
So you mandate that every university will have a community college office and facilities to conduct certain kinds of efforts to support the population, the student population.
And if I can add to that, Mike, I mean, I'm going to go back to my experience with the industry sector councils and the WIP in the state. They're the ones that are putting that out there, the mandate, if you will. You will, as industry sector councils, go out and find out what the needs are. Well, if they're putting it on us and we tell them what the needs are, then they should be mandating the colleges to educate the individuals to support those needs of those jobs.
And I'll
Kinda goes
provide a
both
very
ways.
specific example. For many years now, and I believe this is still occurring, Washington State University contracts with Spokane Falls Community College, a community college that's about 2 hours away. And so Spokane Falls provides all of the remedial math at the WSU campus, exactly like that. And that way the state is funding it. I mean, right now what's a bit crazy about the lack of mission differentiation is that families who opt for that model are paying out of pocket, and it just seems peculiar. And it also means that only privileged families are able to go that route, which is unfortunate as well. So the only thing I'll add is that we do have a new interim chancellor, Chancellor White. And so perhaps the recommendation is targeting the regents and the chancellor.
We are definitely, I
Right.
did have a conversation with Chancellor White. Very interesting, learned a lot of things. They're doing some wonderful things for us. We're really seeing some movement, but he did not seem to think this mission differentiation was, he kind of took the opposite view, which was, all the universities do, dual enrollment. All of them do remediation. That's not, and I was polite, as I could be.
Well, and I think,
but I made it
yeah.
clear to Enshi that the chancellor and I had differing views on this subject.
Right, because ultimately it does come down, when you don't have a clear mission differentiation in a system of public higher education, you do waste money, but you also erode the quality of the work because you're spending money on the wrong services. And that's really what the regents and the chancellor should be extremely concerned about at this point. And it is unfortunate that the genie's out of the bottle. The genie's probably been out of the bottle for a couple of years now and expanding very quickly. And it's hard to
Put it back in.
Yes, it truly is. So thank you for your help with this. It really is important.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll be calling on input as we move along in these discussions, which I think are going to, but we've been given many opportunities, though, to express our opinions and our thoughts, and I think for that I thank the Chancellor and she for at least, really providing a forum to have solid discussions rather than just very large public meetings where it's very difficult to engage. So I thank everybody for that, and we do want to keep, and I know other people are going to have to move on. I'd like to, could we take number 8, the legislative, perhaps, and move that
Sure.
a little bit further on and then go ahead and discuss what we talked about at our last board meeting, the makeup of the IAC itself. In meetings with the other IACs, I think we're in very, very good shape. We have a great group of people here that we hope to keep together. But we have discussed perhaps having some additional industries or organizations present with us. We currently have 11 members. We can go up to 15, so there are some opportunities. The process for putting new people on is really, it's up to Dr. Hilgerson, who will be nominating people. And then that goes to Enshi for appointment by the chair of the Board of Regents, who generally, I'm sure, follows what the presidents are asking for. Dr. Sheehan did, I think, a fantastic job. If you look at our IAC compared to the others, I think we have wonderful industry and community representation in the workforce area on this board, and as a result of that, we're so much stronger. I think we're getting a lot of respect at NSHE from this group. And so we want to, I know some people had some ideas which we'd like to share with Karin, so that we can perhaps add a few people to this group. And so it was something we wanted to think about. And Brad?
I think only because when I came on this, I had been working for NV Energy at that point, and I think utilities, because they're so important to the building of infrastructure for future development, and of course, NV Energy is so strong in supporting the Edison campus through the renewable programs and whatnot. I think something from utilities should be there, whether it be NV Energy or someone else. The other one that, you know, as I continue to read more and more, is something in and around, not call them drones, what do we call them?
UAVs.
UAVs. But I think somewhere in that realm also, because I know, you know, I heard, you know, we were doing some things around that here at the college. I don't know to what extent at this point, but you know, so much more of the testing is going to be happening here in Nevada, and I don't know what's happening down at College of Southern Nevada or UNLV, but I think we should investigate that. If it's not happening somewhere, we should be doing it, because I think, you know, we've got the majority of the land, you know, out here in the West to do this, and I think, you know, we've had a lot of, and Mike and Nancy can certainly tell you more about that, but the interest of those types of companies coming in, we have great support of the airport in that with Tina Iftiger and her crew bring those types of companies here. So those are the two industries that I think should be represented on this board.
I think on following up on the drones, I mean, TMCC does have a wonderful drone program, which we really need to kind of sell a bit more, because, I mean, we're doing great things. But also, I'd like to kind of tie to the drones. The other things you mentioned, and they're doing a lot of this in Southern Nevada, is the tying in the FAA recertification of for airplane mechanics. We're short mechanics, we're short pilots, we're short everybody to do with the airline industry and aerospace, and I kind of looking at that, tie that together, if I might. Okay.
A couple of ideas
That was
that I had.
entertaining. I like that.
We don't really have any technology representation on the council today, whether it's an Apple, a Switch, a Coke, Microsoft. I think that that's a piece that's missing, and with the growth of technology-based companies in the region, that understanding what that industry, how that industry is evolving in the region is important. I would also tie in, or potentially tie in with the UAV, the whole subject of autonomous vehicles. So that all kind of fits nicely into kind of a bundle as well, where, you know, some of the work that's now evolving in the region is really around all the autonomous vehicle systems, which are emerging and will continue to merge with the presence of Tesla and the like. The other one, and I was happy to hear from Mike Holmes, is that you don't have any representation on a permanent basis from construction. And so the leaders of many of the construction alliances in the region, there's at least 4 that I know of, you know, that have great leadership, and they're such a critical part if we're attracting people and creating jobs, that without the builders being able to do what they do, it makes it very difficult, whether they're building a new hospital or expanding on a healthcare facility, which we're going to need, or they're building homes for the workers that are coming to the region. So my focus area, I guess, would be technology, and then also the construction. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have an entrepreneur on this board, a young entrepreneur that is trying to build the next SNC of the region, or the next ClickBond of the region. So some sort of entrepreneur that's really trying to start and grow a company here, and, you know, trying to move it from 5 million to 100 million. And there are those entrepreneurs here, and their perspective on what their needs are going to be, I think, would be important.
Thank you very much. Construction now is a sector, one of the economic sectors. they've gone from the primaries, they finally got, thank you, added the Construction Sector Council, so that comes within our purview under Section 17 or whatever. So we've got utilities, technology, drones, UAV, autonomous, really sort of I think sort of a technology area, construction. Anything else?
I'm going to throw one thing out, for fear of being hung up by saying this following this conversation around the university, but should we look at somebody from the university, and specifically in the area of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, engineering? I mean, some of the white paper that you sent out I thought was very interesting. And if we're going to really change the model, I think we've got to face it head on.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know why, for example, on the LEAP manufacturing framework, it's 2 years at TMCC and 3 at the university to get an engineering degree, a bachelor's.
Should be.
And you don't start to affect change unless you invite the enemy in
Right now,
to start having a conversation. So
I totally
at the
agree.
risk
Keep
of
your
being
friends
run out of
close
the
and your
room,
enemies
I'm
close.
just going to
Yeah.
suggest
No,
we
no,
want to
I
have
think
somebody
that's-
from the university.
I actually had the same thought, because it really can't be viewed. I've worked with university partners very successfully, and honestly, I've never viewed a university partner as competition until now. I mean, I'm just being blunt, you know, and so yes, I think you're absolutely right, and I think we need to be think carefully about who would best. I mean, part of me thinks instead of a workforce university, let's get a university representative who works with transfer education, because still, you know, half of our students are transferring to UNR, and I've always believed that our goal in transfer at the community college is to respond appropriately and effectively to what the major feeder university needs. That's what we're trying to do, that they're sort of the boss when it comes to transfer programs. And we want to make sure that we've prepared our transfer students to succeed, not only to succeed, but to exceed the level of the what in higher ed we call the native student. So a junior that transferred from TMCC in anthropology, my expectation is they perform better than the junior who started at UNR. And there's a lot of national research on this that shows, in fact, they do perform better, typically between 0.1 and 0.2 decimal points in that junior and senior GPA, which is great. We should be extremely proud of that, because what we're saying is we're taking students oftentimes who played catch up, and we transfer them as juniors, and then they do better, right? And so I would love to have a UNR person here who's really represents the transfer education piece. Anyway, but I totally agree with you.
I think that's a great idea, because it gives us, one second, from, you know, having Scott here, so we've got the whole spectrum. In other words, we see where we fit, and we can have discussions on how the community perceives, how we are doing, moving people through the entire system, and seeing if we can help make the system work. And so I think that's, I like that, and I'm sorry, Marissa, yes?
I just have one comment, because I've heard this from a lot of students, particularly when in nursing or in healthcare, the transition from a community college to a university, there's a lot of more communication that needs to be done, because that transition isn't very smooth. And when they get ready to transfer, they're not automatically embraced by the university. They're told, well, now you can't get into this program because you need to take this and this and this in addition to what you have. And I know of a student that said, well, I have an associate's in this. After they told him you needed this and this, well, if you have an associate's in that, then you can come on in and you don't have to take these other classes. So there is a break in communication, and I think we work in silos a lot of this. So I think that would be very advantageous to have somebody from the university here.
Anyone else have input on this? If you have other ideas, let Cara know. Chris?
I wasn't going to say anything, but I do think that right now, at this point in time, we have a new president and a semi-new president on the other side. And I really do feel, based on some of my experience here over the past few years, that there's an opportunity right now to make a change. And I do think it has to come directly across, top to top. And that conversation has to be ongoing and continuous and not just a meeting once every couple of months. I do think that there's a lot that could be put on the table right now that maybe would open up a real dialogue that prior to this point in time could not happen.
You're absolutely right.
I do, and although I do with trepidation, because without being too specific, I get the sense from the university leadership that they have it in their heads, it's a free market economy. We don't care if we get double the funding. It's a free market economy and we win. I'm just boiling numerous conversations I've had in the last 8 weeks.
And I would support that.
And I'm very troubled by that, because it's not a very, we had a funny word at my former institute, at the SUNY created a word, it's now in Wikipedia, and the word is systemness. Like kind of like truthiness, it's systemness. And I think that we really do, when you say top to top, I think it really needs to start at the regents and the new chancellor. And there's got to come a point, hopefully in the next 6 months, where very clear boundaries are set. Because my interactions so far, and they've been good interactions, by the way, very nice, very civil, very intellectual, but bottom line, it's a free market economy. We win, you lose. And the reason it's an incredibly flawed argument is in state subsidized institutions, there is no such thing as a free market economy. I'm sorry, the business model doesn't apply to state public higher education. And that's the problem I have. But I appreciate your optimism, and I'm going to carry it with me.
Yes, go for it.
Right, yeah.
If anybody has any other thoughts, again, on this subject, this is something we'll be carrying forward, both of us, for a couple more meetings. So this is very important. And Karen, we've given you some ideas on this. If anybody has any thoughts on any particular individuals tied to some of these groups, please pass them along. And we also are looking forward to, you did get the list of when people's terms are up. For those of you who are celebrating wildly because you are on the 2017 list, your names will be put back in for another 4-year term.
The rest of us indentured slaves.
That's right, and the rest of us are here forever, so there will be no defections. This is not permitted. And so with that, I think we will move item number 8 to the next meeting. If we may move item number, number 6 and number 8, be moved down to new business. Anybody else have anything else for new business?
Can I say one quick thing about item?
Absolutely.
So this gives you some time between now and the next meeting to try to really think about, based on your knowledge and your understanding of all the wonderful work occurring at TMCC, what would be your suggestion for what's the vision for the next chapter of the college? So just sort of ponder that so that next time we get together, you've got a clarity of thought. Thanks.
Could I just add one thing under new
Absolutely.
business? I would be interested at the next meeting to hear what your marketing plan is for the new technical high school. I know that from what I hear, it's beautiful. The equipment is sophisticated. I know that you didn't get the cohort that you wanted in there, so I'd be interested to know what you're doing to get that sped up to where we get up to the whatever 50 students that you wanted to get to, and frankly what you're doing to engage with all the constituencies that kind of play in that field to go see that facility. So I'd like to hear something about that.
Can I share something now? Is that,
Yes.
And Kate, you might have to jump in, and but my understanding, and Councilman Scott Bailey might want to jump in. My understanding is that and I just hope I've got this correct, Kyle will know for sure too, but is that the high school is basically leasing a classroom in the Applied Tech Ed Center at the Patsy building, and are utilizing all the same equipment that we use for our 2-year degree program. So it's not really separate equipment, but that is part of TMCC High School, which is actually now in 2 locations, here on Dandini and at the new Edison Technology Center. But that technically, that is a high school program. We are helping as best we can, but I think the marketing of that is largely centered with the Washoe County School District. Am I correct, Kate? Okay, and luckily our marketing person is here. So.
Hello, for the record, Kate Kirkpatrick, Director of Marketing and Communications. TMCC High School has been around for almost 20 years and is a product of the Washoe County School District. They have had wonderful success doing their own marketing using the Washoe County School District Marketing Department when necessary, but for the most part, they get more applicants than they need. Now, that's for the regular high school. So the technical pathway being new, this year we were able to do some partnership with them. We did some co-radio ads. We did a lot of mailings and social media posts and trying to help them straighten out the application and the website and things like that. Now, because it's a product of the Washoe County School District, I think the long-term intention is to turn the marketing back over to the school district and let them handle it. Yes, I'm getting a nod. Good. For this year, I was just talking to former Dean Jim New yesterday. They do have 10 students recruited by us and the high school for this year, and they do have 25 students from ACE High School that will be in the second classroom. So there's a total of 35 students enrolled in the tech pathway for this year. It's not the 50 we were hoping for, but it's a good start. And we did get started a little bit late on the marketing for this year, and so now that it's out in the community, the plan, I think, would be to use the school district resources to say, hey, this exists, it's great, and hopefully word of mouth and all the traditional things the high school would do to recruit students would be enough to get us to the 50 mark for next year.
And I do think it's important that we work together because ultimately there's a mutual gain for all concerned.
Well, and it's kind of odd to me that you're the one that put up the money, and yet they're the ones that are filling it. It's your investment, so you do have skin in the game,
right?
For making that work,
right? Yes,
it's kind of a little bit twisted there.
If I may add, Scott Bailey for the record, certainly it is a collaboration. We worked with Kyle extensively on how we would market. I agree the time frame was kind of compressed this year. Had we had a little longer or elongated time frame, I think we would have yielded different results. As far as the marketing, yes, we are using our counselors, our site admin, teachers, pretty much anyone that has contact with students to market. On an interesting note, my executive assistant, her son is in the inaugural class, so he's extremely excited. We took that excitement and had him speak to the Board of Trustees about this opportunity recently. So those are the types of things we're doing to ramp up marketing to fill those spots for next school year.
If I could add, Kyle Dalpy for the record, I met in the hallway. I stepped out and actually met with the principal, and they have an assistant principal down at the Tech Pathways because they need to have a lead administrator, Tomas, and I just talked with him. And he has some strategies as well. And what we could do to bring back, because this is new business, is we could do a joint presentation on everything that's going on related to this partnership and how we use the gift from the Pennington Foundation to make Phase 2 happen, which includes the high school program, if you'd like that for next time.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Mike.
One, we're moving 8 on to next session, but I would, just a comment, we say the year of higher education and immediately think of university. So I would offer maybe part of the discussion would be the year of workforce development.
Okay.
And that gives us a differentiation there.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.